Hi, I'm Maz, and this is my 30-second self-portrait.
Mariane, thank you for being here. This is what we're keeping. This is what we're keeping. Sorry.
Good luck getting the formal introduction.
Maz,
Alan.
what's your story?
Oh, 43 years and 43 seconds. Do you know what? I'm going to start with today and we'll reverse engineer. That's probably easiest. My story. Right now, today, I'm definitely chasing magic. I think that's the easiest place to start. Chasing magic, and I've been playing around with this idea of powering magic, because I've realized that's probably the through line of how I came into this world and what I'm here to do. So if we reverse engineer, you and I were just having a chat. I've only recently given up the formal title of clinical psychologist, which was a really big decision because I actually came into psychology out of the arts when I was 21. So I came straight out of school, straight into the performing arts sector and trained with some really beautiful actors. And it was that I was producing at Belvoir Street and stumbled across this kid every day. Actually, we'd go for a coffee, so we'd strike up a conversation. And as I was heading onto the theatre, he told me one day that he was keen to come along. So I was like, okay, why not? Because Maz does that, she brings people with her. And I saw this kid go into the theatre and his eyes just lit up. And even as I'm saying that, I think that's the magic I've always chased, is just seeing the potential in people and in moments and figuring out where that source of magic is. For me, I guess magic is like that mattering, that purpose that you can't describe. You just feel it. So I take this kid into the theatre. He has a wild time and wants to come back. And it suddenly struck me, well, hang on a second. I'm a person right now who's in a really privileged position who can call a shot. So it was an indie play. So when I say I was at Belvoir Street, this is Maz scraping some money together and saying, sure, we can do a play. But it was with some really cool artists. We had Damien Walsh howling in the cast, if anyone remembers Underbelly. And I knew the kids would get something great if we put them with the actors, but I had a sense that the actors would too. And so without realizing, I'd set up sort of my social enterprise experiment, because it just didn't sit right with me that there was this kid that couldn't come into a theatre and there we all were having access. So that was a shot. That was just a shot I decided to pull. It's like, here I am, I can do it. So we did it. What came out of that was incredible. It really showed me how much one decision and one introduction can make to change a multitude of lives. And I was right. The kids had a great time. We had a couple of them, and these are at-risk youth. You know, they were kids who were in and out of foster homes as youngs. They'd come into Salvation Army or Oasis because it was kind of their last catch. So some of them were otherwise heading on a trajectory to juvenile detention centre.
Oh, wow.
They were at-risk youth. And then for the actors, we had some egos in that room. And by the end of the show, to see them all together, hanging out just like crew, you've got an arts background, you know what that's like, that sense of community. And so I was like, wow, how do we do more of this? And it's so funny because when we were talking just before we went live, you mentioned Kids Express. And actually, the CEO of Kids Express was the first one who sat me down. I'd been introduced to her from somebody else and said, you know what, Maz, if you really want to do this, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the kids and whatever you're doing to get some rigor behind you. So that set me off on my path for psychology. Mm-hmm. So I went into psychology, ironically, 20 years ago, with the intention to kind of disrupt things a little bit and to take away, if you like, well, not take away, but be additive. So CBT was a predominant model for healing at the time, which is quite a cognitive-based model. And I'd seen multiple times, both in this experience, but also in my own personal lived experience of moving through PTSD, that CBT is got a place 100%. But for some of us in the world, we need things that we can touch and we can feel and we can sense, those more somatic practices. So I went into psychology chasing this big vision and dream that I was going to prove to them all as a 20-something that actually, the arts is where we need to be. So I spent 20 years in sort of, counseling, psychotherapy, then psychology. Now to this point in time where at a period where we need to scale access to well-being, to science, and that's what I've been about, there's been changes to how we can practice or how psychologists could, I'm still saying how psychologists can practice. I am no longer a psychologist. How psychologists can practice. And for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter. But the change is going to mean that diversified practice is going to be really difficult for now. So I've hung up the hat. So the question of what's my story sort of feels like I'm coming back to where I was and that there's a new piece to unfold. But I guess tying it all together, it comes back to chasing magic. And the people that I work with today tend to be the creatives that have been for a long time. And that's probably because within myself, I self-identify. And those creatives tend to be neurodivergent. And I guess what got me into getting really excited about working with people whose brains and nervous systems and bodies are wired a little bit differently is one, I've worked with the community clinically for a very long time, but my 2 children are neurodivergent. So I've got 2 kiddos who are now 17 and almost 20 with a profile that's twice exceptional. So they're gifted and they're autistic and ADHD. And raising those kids has been magic on steroids and really difficult because they sit at the edges. They also were the gateway for me understanding my own late neurodivergence as well. So I received my own diagnosis of ADHD, late 30s. And it just made me realize how much of the decisions I've made, the mistakes that I've tried to overcompensate with stories about, were a little girl growing up in a world that just wasn't ever designed or recognized my way of being, which is a little bit different, which is okay. So now I'm really passionate about designing for difference and finding those edges and seeing where the stars are and helping others pull constellations together and share that in a way that reaches others. I love that. It feels like creativity in a very human, meaningful way. How I do that? Yeah, watch this space. We'll keep evolving. That story will continue to unfold.
It's an amazing one. I mean, I was introduced to you last year, Maz, and already I could, I think the moment I met you, I was like, you are an incredibly interesting human because you are amazing public speaker. I think everybody was very enthralled. This was at Sydney Design Thinking. I can't remember which one.
I can't remember the number, but it was October last year, I'm sure.
Yes.
It was for ADHD Awareness Month, so it was almost a year
yes.
that we were hanging out. There you go.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it was, I think just the way you spoke about it was, I think I could relate to a lot of the things that you were talking about. I was like, wow, this is really amazing. But then, just in conversation with you, hearing more about the things that you do, so from public speaking to your arts background to being a psychologist, ex-psychologist,
a former psychologist.
Exactly. It's just, I love that the journey is completely unpredictable. And I think in myself, I feel like a strong connection to that because I think I know a little bit of what it's like to do all kinds of unusual things. I think much like yourself, I'm on the other side. So not with the acting. I was a director and designer for film, and did that for many years. And I could never have seen myself in this, like where I am today. I don't think I would have predicted that I would have my own business with some awesome creative humans and solving like completely unusual problems that I would never have dreamed of. So I am definitely keen to see where the next chapter of your story takes you because wow is what I can say. And I'm
but
very
likewise
inspired.
to you. I mean, I remember when I saw you all in action, and there I was going, wow, Mads for 10 minutes on the stage. How's this going to go? And it was late at night too, and I do not do well late at night, or the afternoon for that matter. My brain kind of goes in 57 million different directions. But I was so captivated by what you were doing on the wall with your sketches. And I'm pretty sure when I introduced myself to you, you might have thought that there was something going on with my eyes, that I had some kind of like eye thing, because I'm pretty sure they were out like this. They were wow, you know, that I was just so enthralled. I remember seeing your, and that's life as well, you know. And I think it's taken me a long time to be okay with that, because you walk into a cafe or you walk into a room full of people or a networking event, and the first thing that gets asked is, oh, hi, what's your name? What do you do?
Yeah.
Try answering that when you're a multi-hyphenite. And so it got to a point where I would say, it's more of the question, what don't I do?
Yeah.
But that doesn't land either. I don't know, for anybody who is listening to this who resonates, one of the greatest gifts I think that we're going to have moving forward, especially in this era where we're getting more and more AI saturation and technology coming on in, I'm really curious about how we're going to sustain ourselves as humans in terms of our unique value, because the machines are doing things that are like way faster and quite frankly more efficient. And I think in terms of what our magic is recognizing that actually nothing in nature is linear. Everything's got its own rhythmic, organic, natural kind of, what's the word I want? Merging. Like and nothing works in isolation. And I think we have been trained and taught ourselves and bought into the story for such a long time that in order to get from birth, which is one point in our lives, to death, which is the other point in our lives, that the space in between needs to somehow be a predictable straight line that we're in control of. That is such a lie that we've conned ourselves into. I mean, I mentioned to you earlier before, slight digress, because Maz does this too, and you tell me if we don't have time, by the way, rein me in. I learned that was a lie. I mentioned PTSD earlier. At 19, I had a near-death experience. I've talked about this previously. Trigger warning though to anybody who is listening. I had a near-death experience at the hands of a man that should have loved me. And that was awful. And it threw me into states of horror and despair and dreams and physical pain and flashbacks and a reckoning of how do I make sense of a world now when everything I thought was true is no longer. But the gift that also taught me, and why I became so obsessed, like even though my title was clinical psychology, all of my research was in positive psychology. So how do we find meaning? How do we support people with their purpose? How do we activate potential? That came out of my own experience also with post-traumatic growth, and recognizing that if we're going to be here and we're going to get a shot at this, and we have no idea, by the way, how long that's for, or why, or what the end result will be, like all of that's out of our control. If that's going to be the case, then strip away all the noise and the titles and all the jazz, like what actually matters. And none of what matters tends to be linear or predictable. That's kind of scary for us as humans.
I think so. I mean, hearing you say that is, in some ways, and it probably doesn't immediately feel like it would be, but it's reassuring in one way. I get a lot of young designers and just young people who I come across in the education space, and I can see that there are a lot of questions about what their role is in future. Is there still space for human creativity or magic, as you call it? I mean, what's your take on that? Because I mean, I love the fact that you say things are non-linear, and there's not one clear path, but many, and there's a potential for the fact that they're all connected. But AI, as you mentioned, is so efficient, blindingly fast, and we are adopting it in a way that it's almost completely throwing caution to the wind, and we're just saying, let's just do this thing. Where does creativity, or human creativity more specifically, play a role, and does it still play a role, do you reckon?
Yeah, I do. More and more. There's so many different angles we could go with that question. Coming back to the kids, I don't know if you know this about me, but one of the first social enterprises that I formally set up was with my sister. So I co-founded, and still under the company we run today, the Posify Group back in 2018. And we co-founded that as a positive youth development mission, if you like, that was recognizing the problem that we had these kids disengaging from our formal education system. So, this is pre-COVID, and my sister was working as a teacher at the time, and I was very much in the thick of having just come out of finish my formal qualifications in clin psych. I was very heavy in the one-to-one model. And both of us were recognizing that on the one hand, Jen could see in our classrooms, these kids were going, well, what for? Climate crisis at the time was really top of mind for the kids. And they were learning about concepts that they just didn't see as being relevant. Meanwhile, in the clinical one-to-one space, there I am sitting, working one-to-one with kids at the time. I was doing a lot of kids and teenage work and going, okay, great. You guys are getting momentum once you get these skills in your hand. And then what about all your classmates? Like, there's only so many one-to-ones that we can do. So anyway, we brought our two heads together and said, if we're going to help set these kids up for a future that they can actually thrive in, then what they're going to need is actually those future skills and those mindsets and that sense of purpose. Because we were arguing that if their core central concern at that age was around what is the world going to look like and is any of this relevant, who knows? But the thing that you can hold on to is a North Star. And yet, at what point in time was our traditional education system educating kids on how to figure out what their values were, how to connect, how to communicate, how to pull your values together with a sense of where is that wicked problem and how can I uniquely solve that? And that within itself is a form of creativity. And so to come back to your question, is creativity going to hold moving forward? I would say that mission that we started back in 2018, I would say that now more than ever, they double down, they double down. Because the thing that right now the machines aren't doing is they're not connecting at an intuitive level, which has got a lot of creativity to it. There's a sense of expanded awareness that our brains and our bodies can do. Let's call it a reading between the lines. All sorts of fun stuff in neuroscience you can look at, states of consciousness and mirroring, all the things. Machines can't do that yet. And I think they're going to be a while off because they don't yet have functional technology for it. They're very good at pattern recognition. But if you notice with AI at the moment, anyone who's playing with it, as LLMs, they're pulling together what is existing. Yes, they're creative in how they can spit that out, but they've got constraints and they don't have directionality. And what they can't do is spontaneously spin off. And they definitely can't spontaneously spin off from a perspective of values and of an understanding of wisdom and of truth. And all of that centers in creativity. So I think for me, it depends on how you define creativity. Are we going to see a rising up in AI-generated graphic design, movies, photos that are just off the charts, wild and brilliant? Yes. Are they going to be somewhat typical? Probably. Are they going to be stunning? Absolutely. Will there be magic if humans and AI come together? Personally, I think so, yes. Is it going to be a while before AI really understands what it's here for and what its purpose is and what its role is? It depends who you ask, and it depends whether or not the people at the top who are kind of rolling this game out right now, if they take responsibility for ethical constraints to go in. And all of that's uncertain, like life. Yeah. So if you needed to pick something that was in control, pick creativity. Yeah. Whatever that means to you, and just keep playing. You just got to keep playing. Yeah. What do you think? This is like my absolute obsession space at the moment. Yeah. So I'm just warning you. Like, yeah, I can talk about this for ages.
I love that you say double down, because that's what I think. I feel like looking at all the spaces at the moment, there is not a second's backward glance from the Sam Altmans, the Musks of the world, who are obsessed with tech and being first, being fastest. And there isn't a pause to say, what might we be giving up and losing in this process? And so I think the things that I've been noticing from the young people, as well as the people who are kind of in industries that are being impacted, are kind of, they have some of the qualities that you embody, which is adaptability, flexibility of mind and thinking. Yeah, and not being restricted by narrow guardrails. It doesn't matter who puts them up, but recognizing that those rails are there, and that is it necessarily helping you, and if it isn't, being able to step outside of that and say, okay, I can do this a different way, and it doesn't have to be this exact path. So I reckon the doubling down thing, absolutely. Adaptability, creativity, that is where we need to be kind of focusing our time and our energy, and encouraging kids and everyone to invest their time and energy into. Yeah,
I agree. And I love and I hate and I feel all the things in between this conversation as well, because it's important to me that I work at my own level of optimism. I would say at my core, I'm more of a cynic. I would say that I'm somebody who, I don't look for the worst. It depends on your interpretation of cynicism, but I don't look for the worst, but I definitely plan for the worst case scenario, because my motto has always been, well, if you plan for the worst and you reverse engineer yourself backwards, and I can do that pretty quickly, then there's a plan there, and then you've got option A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. And so I just say, if you're going to double down on creativity because you think to yourself, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? What is actually the worst thing that could happen if you decide that your best bet is to play and to explore and to express yourself and to discover yourself and to discover others who are doing the same and to find different pieces? I don't see a lot of bad things that can come from that. I do have concerns where there isn't cognitive flexibility. I'm working on a piece at the moment, which I've just launched, called Naked Purpose. And it's coming from this idea of being in this point in time where I just think that the labels are going to go. AI is really humbling us as humans. That's becoming very clear to more and more people on a daily basis. And I've been saying for a while, I think we're going to have to redefine what success looks like for us, and be okay with letting go of all of those sort of egocentric, not that people have to be egocentric, but there is ego in assuming that we have the predictive power that we think we have. And I'm not sure that it's ours to own. And I think anyone who resonates with that, I'm working really hard to find my tribe at the moment, because it feels like they're at the edges, but they're there. And there are people who are questioning things, not in ways that's dangerous or disruptive. I'm quite risk averse in many ways, but I'm also okay to call a spade and to say, this doesn't align with who I am and what I'm here to do, and what I want to explore and discover. So I think community's coming back. I think connection's coming back. I think people want to be in rooms together. I'm seeing less and less people engaging online. But you say, hey, we're going to meet down at the cafe. People are there. And I think we're going to see more and more and more of that. To me, that's all doubling down on everything that is human, which at its core is creative, because it's wildly unpredictable.
That's so good to hear, Zay, because that's what Think Visual is about. Right? Think Visual is about community, about connecting. And
exactly.
We've just gone global. I think in the last 3 months, we've had our Houston chapter kick off.
I saw that, congrats.
And then Norway just last week. Wow. And it's also continuing today as we speak. I think it was using visual thinking as a tool for helping prison inmates rehabilitate.
Wow.
Like, what an incredible space. Right, so
wow.
It's definitely, I think the human connection is the point of emphasis. Although I had this thought prior, which was, sorry, like a little bit earlier in some of the things that you were saying. It was around, people seeking their tribe and kind of going to find it. I wonder if there's a connection between people going to look for it and also those who can't find it. And what I've been seeing I hear so much anecdotally, but also online about burnout and creative blocks. And I wonder if there's something there about not being able to find your tribe, but also not being able to find meaning in what we do. So I guess the question is, why do you think we're experiencing so much burnout, and where I think I can see so many creative blocks in people? What's happening?
Can I ask a question for the question?
Please.
Do you see burnout and the creative block in a similar container?
Close, like nearby, but not exactly the same.
Can you tell me more?
I would say burnout is when you have no emotional, physical, cognitive energy to do what it is that you're wanting to do, whereas creative blocks may not be as severe. It may be hurdles that you might face. It may be the fact that you're pressured with time, or you might be pressured with the technology and you're forced to do things a specific way, and then you can't. So they both have a
flavor about them.
A flavor, and they both have this challenge, but they're not exactly the same.
Yeah.
But I see them both, like I hear about them on the rise, and I wonder, is there a connection between them? Is there a connection between them not being the people being able to connect, or I don't quite know what it is.
What's going on?
But I'm observing it.
I'm so glad we got this on camera, because I'm going to go back and listen to that.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I asked the question, because I guess, again, from a clinical perspective, you've got the clinical definition of a burnout. So, that clinical sort of classic work burnout. It can be a life burnout. I've experienced it probably closest to home with my kids burning out from our education system.
Yeah.
So both of them happened for both of them at around 14, 15. My son was a little bit younger. We became a part of the school community as a result, because as neurodivergent kiddos, they wanted to be there. They're both actually very socially driven, but the environment for that particular point in their unique developmental point, it didn't fit. So the noises were too much, and the structure was too much, and the demands were too much. And so the burnout looked a little bit different for both of them. My daughter in particular, we had, a very long time where she just had to be, both of them, in very low demand, quiet sanctuaries. And I saw it almost like I've heard professionals describe it this way too, almost like a need to go back into the cave and to hibernate and to feel safe again, and to trust that I can put myself out there and my nervous system's not going to get fried. So I see burnout almost functionally as a last point safety mechanism of the body and the brain to go, enough, I'm so done. And whether those demands are coming from, the burnout as a characteristic of the demands with your expectations at work, or that it's not aligning to where you want to go, or that it's too fast, it's too frenetic, whatever it is, I sort of see it as an outcome of a system-based problem. I see the creative block a little bit differently and by the way, both I think happen on a continuum. Like, you can see short periods of burnout where you do the sprint and then you kind of burn out, and then you do the sprint and you burn out. That's very ADHD-ish. So that was part of how I got my diagnosis. But my burnouts have never been long and catastrophic. For autistic people, they can go for like 18 months, they're huge. Whereas a creative, and then you've got many ones. So the creative block, I can see happen in similar ways on a continuum, in the sense that you can have a block you've got a 4-hour writing period, for example, and there's a block there for 30 minutes. It's like, what's going on? In some ways, I think that they're similar in the sense that they're probably signals, and I just wonder if they serve different purposes. Like for a burnout, to your point of, is it going to is it about connection? I see withdrawal as a symptom, but maybe actually that withdrawal is a necessary season of repair to then go, okay, you're fresh again. Now who? Bring them in slowly, be careful, make choices. And if we use these seasons, I think they're awful, don't get me wrong, I don't want to romanticize any human suffering, that's not what I stand for, but I do think there's opportunity to take time. Creative block I see as more a process opportunity as well. And I wonder if sometimes blocks come from the expectations. I don't know. There's something.
I think that resonates. The expectations. Like when you are expected to, do things instantly or be faster.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of the work that we do kind of I guess you would call it some kind of a performative thing where in graphic recording we might be listening to a conversation live and where like it's not just beautiful images. Every single graphic recorder that I know, a lot is going on inside their minds because they're rapidly synthesizing all this information, making connections between all these different things, creating visuals and a visual like images and visual structure to create this cohesive image. So the pressure for us to finish quickly is there, but there's part of it is it's helpful. Part of it's really helpful. Sometimes it's not though.
The pressure and the time constraint.
The time constraint can be helpful. I think there are times when there's, let's say, a lack of trust, or there's like an overbearing. Well, not too many, thankfully, but there are occasionally overbearing clients or people who want to control the outcome a lot, and I have seen it in for when they do it to me and to others that it can be stifling. Like suddenly you stop being able to listen. And the listening part is really critical. More so than even the drawing part actually, because it's you're receiving all this data, and your eyes are receiving, your mind is receiving it, and somehow that's supposed to be formed and shaped into something. But the blocks come when there is something hindering the entry of that data. And sometimes that's in the form of someone saying, oh, it needs to be like this, it has to be like this, or can you do it like this really but faster and make this better, and nothing particularly useful comes out of those conversations. They're vague. And I see this in other industries where it's not about live performance, but people are told that the performance of something or the creation of something has to be done really fast at the expense of going through, let's say, the proper processes, and suddenly people are taking shortcuts, and then they get stuck in, as to what am I supposed to do next? I've bypassed a whole lot of thinking that I would normally have done, and now I'm at a point where ordinarily I've had the time to process, stuff up, make all the mistakes, and then get there and then go, okay, this is what we need to do. Now with I think the expectation is go faster. Is it better? We don't know, but just go faster. So I don't know if that is if that's kind of what you meant also by the expectation.
It is. So neuroscience geek you out for a second. I'm going to draw as I talk to help me, because as you were speaking, so many things came out. One of the things I've been playing with around this concept of the block. One is a signal that things are going awry. So it's a let's pause. Like, where are we actually operating from right now? It's time to synthesize things together. But I see with creatives, myself included, and those that I work with, that we just have access to different dimensionalities of time. So we're, without getting all quantum physics on us, and you don't need to go woo-woo with me, but in terms of that idea collapse, when you go into a flow state, and I think why creatives chase it so much, it just knows no limits. Input is just coming in, and your job is to catch it. And when you're in that state, people talk about time either stands still or it goes really fast, or you don't have a sense of time. Time is just not of the essence. The creation is. And and that container feels good because it activates all of the really sexy neurotransmitters. It's like, I call it the neurochemical cocktail. You've got 6 like really chunky, you've got dopamine happening, you've got serotonin, oxytocin, all these things come together and it feels good. And I think if we then put that next to the high proportion of neurodivergent humans that we know are within our creative communities as well, one thing we know about a neurodivergent brain is that it's got a different distribution of many of those neurotransmitters. So dopamine is something that's differently distributed. And so when we get to lock those things together, it's like, oh, this is me in my magic zone. So that's the big time thing, right? Like time's out here. But then to your point, then we've got to produce something. That's where the expectations. That's, you've gone from creative over here, and then I go, well, now you're in your craft. This is the discipline. This is the execution. So what happens in the brain, which is where I was like, I'm going to draw this. And as you were talking about how the time constraints as a visual image person, if you imagine that from the state of flow, I think probably what's happening in the brain is inputs coming in, right? And for that to, you mentioned data. So I'm going to use, so we've got brain/speech bubble. Inputs coming in, you've got to listen to the data points as the artist. And then your job is to quickly process that in a way that, makes some magic over here. And then you're going to output that in the form of your drawing. And I'm just going to put a wand there because that's your magic. In order for that to work, the part of our brain that's responsible for processing that information and restoring it into then short-term memory, working around in our working memory, and then doing something with it, that's a part of the brain called the executive network. So that's your executive network system. That's your organization, your plan, all of the jazz. It's a thinking part. It's a more recently evolved part for humans. The other parts of our brain that are responsible for our emotions and how we feel and the automaticity of, like, if you were to suddenly go, boo, I might go, oh, and startle out of my control. That happens in the limbic system, which is a different part of the brain. And it's highly sensitive for neurodivergent folk in particular. So one of the things that will set off the limbic system and freak people out is what? Fear. How do you get fear? You get somebody who's yelling out expectations and you're not sure if you can match them. Mm-hmm. So I think then that creates self-doubt. And what happens is when then this part of the brain, this like amygdala, I'm freaking out, I need to shut things down. It says, oh, we're going to go offline now. You are so irrelevant. We don't need to make decisions because as an amygdala, I'm the most, from an evolutionary perspective, I'm the one that says, no thinking, run, hide, freeze, put your pants, do whatever you need to do, but get out of there, right? There is no creativity happening when your amygdala is the thing running. I shouldn't just say amygdala is part of that. There's a whole limbic system, but when it's running the show and your executive functions have shut down, there's not a lot of creativity happening. And I wonder if in there's also the block. Mm. So when I'm working with creatives to say, okay, you've got a block, one of the things that I'll say is, well, where's the fear coming from? How can you, another one to have a think about is, you've probably seen this before, but your circles of influence and control. So what's in your control, what's out of your control, and what's the thing in the middle is your influence. The majority of people who will shut down and experience a block are because they're concentrating far too much on this circle, all the things that are out of their control. And all that does is set this guy off, like alarm bells are ringing, bing, 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 bing. And there's no thinking, there's no strategic planning, there's no hang on a second, like, woo, woo, woo. So we've got to see the block as a minute just to take a breath, to take a step back and ask ourselves what's actually going on. Is there a real threat? Because if there is, you better get out of there. But if the threat's coming from some form of external expectation, it's time to reset those and revisit them and look at some boundaries. And if it's coming from an internal expectation, is that a bit of perfectionism going on? Is that expectation reasonable? Is there something we can do to tweak it? So I don't know. I see sometimes if we could just be at peace with recognizing that some of this it's kind of natural. It's there to keep us safe. And it's also a little bit old and outdated. Maybe it's becoming more relevant. Maybe the block is actually in some ways, not a curse, but our access to some of our greatest magic if we listen to it.
Mm-hmm. Marianne, I hope you know that we're going to animate this.
Oh, please do, because that's very messy.
This is awesome. This is fantastic. This, like, just seeing this visual is so helpful. Actually, it just made me think, how often do you do this sort of thing? And do visuals have a place in your work and in your life?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they do. It's funny because, I just talked about what are your fears, what are your alarm bells, where are your judgments? And I do often think, well, that is incredibly messy.
But so helpful. so helpful.
Well, it's helpful for you. That's sweet to hear. I'm not sure that I can agree, but I appreciate you sharing it. That's my own self-doubt creeping in. But it's really helpful for me, because if you listen to the uncut raw version of this, because I know you're going to produce it, but if Alan's okay to share the actual, like, Maz unfiltered version, the way my brain works with my processing, it's very circular. And I'm happy for you to share it, because a lot of ADHDers in particular will silence their voices, and they're afraid to communicate their ideas, because for linear thinkers who don't think in circles and who communicate in straight lines, our way of getting to our point can be incredibly frustrating. Drawing visually, if I'm trying to explain a complex concept where there's lots of things happening, drawing allows me to as a container to place those ideas, and it provides me with a map that I can go anywhere I want to on this page. So it's kind of like, we talked about AI. It's kind of like it's almost like my engineering constraint with total freedom.
I really like that, and I've never thought about it like that, but that is, I think this is why we love doing these, or having these chats and bringing unique perspectives on, because I love being able to say, I've never heard that before. I've never seen that before, and I have never heard that before. So that's really cool that you're able to do that. And also, just from my perspective, this was incredibly useful to me because when you're speaking about this, for a person like me, I'm receiving so many images of different types of information, and then what the brain looks like, and it's kind of rotating in my mind, and I'm like, okay, and there's a person sitting there, like all these things are happening, right? So it's very vivid visuals. But when you do this, it helps me clear the decks, and then I just focus on that, and then my mind calms down.
I love that.
Just goes, okay, focus on that.
Yes.
Don't listen to all of this stuff, because you don't need it right now. You might need it later, but just leave it. And then this is like a focus tool. Even your Venn diagram is an incredibly great focus tool, because I know they're simple, 2 circles and a little and some words on the side, but they immediately tell you where's your point of focus.
Yes.
So this was fantastic.
And
look, if you take it out of context, sure, you might say it's,
what is this?
Whoa, this is messy, but I've had the context, and so will everyone else. So that's kind of cool.
But isn't that also art?
Absolutely.
No one ever is going to, and I just shared out loud, it's all the, oh, well, thanks for saying, all of my imposter syndrome crap that we all carry, but we have to manage that. But art, and the beautiful piece of art, and going back to the earlier part of our conversation, is like, where is the place for creativity moving forward? So AI will polish things up, and it will send you the perfect thing. And more, I think people are just craving the edges. And no one else will ever draw this. They could try. They could get a piece of, what do you call that, like baking paper, and they can like
trace it.
Even if they trace it,
the
way that their pen hits the paper will have a different intensity. They're not going to probably have the makeup smudges that Maz just put there because she's hit her face, and they're not going to have ripped it around as quickly as I did, and so now I've got a crease. Yeah. And it's those creases, and it's those magic little makeup marks, and it's those intense moments where you can see that someone was here and that there was a moment in time. And I just think that there's something that is so pure in that. Can I share with you one more geeky science thing?
Please.
I loved when you shared with me the part about how this helped your beautifully visual, creative mind to go, okay, all of that can happen. And like, let's go here for a minute. Let's zoom in and focus in. The reason I loved you sharing that is because The other thing that I've been playing around with at the moment, there's lots of different parts of the brain, and I'm not a neuroscientist, but I'm a geek, and I'm obsessed with neuroscience. There's another part of the brain, so we've talked a little bit about the executive network. Was that here? Yeah. And then we've got our limbic system.
Mm-hmm.
They all play it in different departments, if you like. The executive system, you can think of that as almost the CEO, or other people, I think I've heard it described as, that's why I put it in the corner up here. It's like, it's kind of the boss. It makes decisions. It helps us to plan, get organized, all of those things. It's wired differently for neurodivergent folk. So part of how you'll end up with a clinical diagnosis, for me, it was, I've got no sense of time. So without medication for ADHD, I don't have a sense of time, which is very difficult in a time-bound society. but that's part of our executive system. So it impacts working memory, processing speed, decision-making, organization, planning, all the things, right? Really important for executing, which is our productivity side. Mm-hmm. That's a craft. But in order to be creative, there's another part of the brain over here, which is the imagination network. Scott Barry Kaufman beautifully calls it, but the formal name for it is the default mode network. Now, the default mode network for most people is when, have you heard of like the shower moments? Where like you're standing in the shower and all of a sudden you go, oh, inside, law. You'll be sweating on something for so long, and then you have the shower moment, yeah? So for the majority of people, the imagination network, where all of those beautiful aha moments happen, the insights and all of the things happen in the shower, or they happen on a long walk in nature, for example, or they happen when you're going to a rest state. So neurotypicals, they go and have their shower. They go for a walk. They go and do anything to get them into a rest state because they're trying to activate the default mode network. It's not always online. For neurodivergent folk, it's never offline. And when you know that, you can just be a little bit kinder to yourself and recognize that all that beautiful magic visually that happens for you, for me, it tends to happen more so with words. When I meditate, it's visually, but when I'm here, it's like words and sequences and patterns and numbers and things. That's always going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so where do I choose to point my focus and do something with that? The other piece that's missing, or it's just differently wired for us, is something called the salience network. So for creativity to be executed, sort of the process looks like default mode network comes on. Oh, actually, I tell a lie. Executive skills go, oh, problem, data's come in, problem over here. Oh, and then, you've got a little bit of the amygdala going, oh, alarm bells. I'm either excited or I'm nervous or something's happening, but I've got urgency now. And that's what AI does not have. It does not have urgency. We have to give it that. It then wants to throw it across to the default mode network. Its job is then to pull in together like all the stars and go, okay, where are the constellations here? How are we going to join these up? But then once you've got that, that's where flow happens as well, by the way. Once you've got that, this guy's like the toggle between the two. And the salience network for a neurotypical person will say, cool story, thanks, flow, switch, now let's execute, right? So depending on your distribution, because of your neurotype and all sorts of things, if you might have a perfect distribution, this happens really easy. I've never met a creative where that's the case, but theoretically it could happen. But if you know that you're someone who spends more time in daydreamy land with showers on and like you've got ideas for days, but you just can't get one over the line, then again, the part that is in your control is, what do I need to put in place into my environment, right? Like what kind of structure do I need that enables me to kind of activate this switch? So rather than fretting about the whole fact that like I'm in a block because I can't ever get structure, I'm just going to argue, you're just putting the blame in the wrong space, because there are people who sit over here who would love to get into this play space. Sure, they can use AI now to ideate and iterate on things, but they want those shower moments. They crave them because they feel good again. And they haven't got what you've got. So the grass is always greener. But I think when we start to understand, in the same way we looked at, personalities for a while and strengths, and appreciated that as being important. I just think there is something in us appreciating and understanding the role that different neurotypes have to play in the creative process, both for ourselves individualistically and then collectively. If we were to come together, then we can create more of those environments where we appreciate that diversity and that difference. We can stop fretting individualistically about what's out of our control and start to go, oh, hey, like, cool, look at all these cool people that could come together, or look at all these cool parts of my brain. And that's, I think, again, where that magic can live. So that's kind of some of the stuff I've been working on lately.
It's bloody brilliant, man. That was fantastic. I think, I don't know, that this really helped in more ways than I am able to articulate at the moment. I think I need to actually reflect on it, but that was fantastic. Yeah.
I'd be silly to not use this opportunity to ask you a question, though.
Please.
Yeah. What gets you into your flow zone?
Oh, that's a great question. Several things, I think. Nature is probably the easiest one, but like there's a very specific type of nature. I think it's forests and cooler environments. So heat definitely throws me out of flow, but cooler environments help me. And music, 100% music. If I don't have music on while I'm working, and Diana can probably attest to this, I don't work effectively. I'm useless. So I feel like music is extremely, it's not a nice to have, it's a necessity, and it really helps me work quickly, efficiently, and you know, it just helps me understand things. It's like it provides a shield for my mind, and I don't know how to describe how I'm listening to it. I'm not just listening to the song, I'm also listening to the gaps between the notes and
the space between.
It makes me like the gaps between actually create a rhythm that let's say that the main rhythm doesn't necessarily focus on. So there's another rhythm underneath, and it's hard to explain. It's why I can listen to some things many times without ever getting tired of it, because it's new rhythms keep appearing.
It's a metronome,
you know,
yeah.
and then it's just
the new or the same that is appealing to you.
It's the new rhythms appear between the gaps, because the moments between the gaps, it depends on how my mind is going at the moment. But while I'm drawing and while I'm writing, those gaps can sometimes appear more prominent than and other times I can't hear them. So it depends on the moment, but I can listen to songs, and they help me really calm my mind down, and it helps me kind of get into that flow state. So those kinds of things. And I think drawing is probably the last thing. It's fortunate that drawing's my job. So,
well, you've orchestrated that well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
thanks for sharing that. That's really brilliant.
Yeah. But thank you again, Maz. That was awesome. I hope we, as I said, we get a chance to play. Yeah,
absolutely.
Where's the best place to look up your stuff? Like,
what I do, or where I play. On the Internet of Things, I'm my name, Mariane Power, .com.au. I am spending a little bit more time now on IG, on Instagrammy. It's a bit more creative. LinkedIn, you'll find more of my, I guess, more academic style of work. Yeah, just head over to Mariane Power and emails there. It's literally me. That's me, myself, and I. So you can come chat, hunt me down.
Well, we'll include all of that in the links. So
thanks
again.
Thank you, crew.